sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
The chemistry between you and Cooper Kupp.
Oh, I mean, that's hard work. That's hours together. I just thank Coach for putting it. Hey, Matthew, you and Coop go get this thing done. He kept calling plays for him, kept finding ways to get him the ball. He made unbelievable plays. That's what he does. I'm just so proud of this team. It's such a team victory. Our defense played outstanding. Special teams timely and big when we needed it. Such a great game.
Wow. That was, man, basically the last 7 playoff games were all just epic finishes, right? The division games, the NFC, AFC championship, and then the Super Bowl. What
fantastic,
did we do to
man.
deserve this as football fans? What did we do to deserve this?
Let's see. As football fans, I'm not sure. As Vikings fans, we suffered a lot, and so we got some sort of payoff. Does that sound fair?
Yes. I've seen a lot of Cousins Crusaders out there taking a victory lap because Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl, and so does Kirk get a ring too?
Oh yeah, Kirk gets a ring,
see?
a trophy. You didn't know about that?
I didn't know they were Siamese twins connected to each other. I thought they were only close to each other in quarterback rankings, but
no. Same guy.
Oh, real quick before we get to statements, we have some breaking Vikings news here. Look at this. Ian Rappaport, Vikings are hiring. How about this? Kevin O'Connell gets up in the morning or didn't even go to sleep last night. Probably had a couple cocktails in Los Angeles and a nice porterhouse or something. And he's hiring staff. So the Vikings are hiring Gerard Johnson to serve as an assistant on the offense and work with quarterbacks under new coach Kevin O'Connell. A 2-time participant in the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship, Johnson was a quality control coach for the Colts last year. So Kevin O'Connell just waking up or not sleeping at all and crafting the future of the Minnesota Vikings. Let's get it.
It's time to get to work, Kevin.
You're just 33 years old, too. Gerard Johnson, young guy.
Get on that plane. Get here. It's time to get to work.
He was also, apparently, he played for Texas A&M.
Yep.
Gerard Johnson played for Texas A&M, where Chad Graff says, coincidentally, Kellen Mond broke a lot of Johnson's records. So maybe he can help maybe he can, do you think he'll pay attention to Kellen Mond?
He'll just ignore him.
Once in a while? Maybe someone
Cold shoulder. Who are you again?
So, all right, this is Mackie and Judd. Monday statements. Judd, you're the leadoff man. Let's do it.
Oh, boy. Okay. Oh, boy. So many things off that game. So many things that pertain to the Minnesota Vikings. Considering Kevin O'Connell, the OC for the Rams, is going to be at some point in time this week introduced as the Vikings coach, one would hope. But statement number 1 is this. Speaking of the link between Stafford and Cousins, I'm going to take it a step beyond that and draw a link between Stafford and Cousins and Cooper Kupp and one Justin Jefferson and tell you this. Star players are never eliminated. Star players are never, I'm going to say this slowly, eliminated. They are always an option. Exhibit A, Los Angeles, California, actually Inglewood on Sunday. Fourth quarter, last Rams drive, Matthew Stafford, and just as importantly or more so, the star player, absolutely, Cooper Kupp. OBJ is out. Everybody knows where the football is going.
Yeah,
everybody. The Bengals did not decide, let's give Cooper Kupp a break. Let's not cover him too much. Everybody knew the ball was going to Kupp. And Sean McVay and Stafford, to his credit.
And Kevin O'Connell.
That's right. And Kevin O'Connell. What did they do? They doubled down and said, screw it. We have no choice. We have one star receiver left, and throwing to these backup guys who are dropping balls and being skittish is not working, and that's not Stafford's fault. We're going to go all in, and we are going to have Matthew Stafford throw, I'm going to say this very slowly again, high-danger passes, high-danger chances. Those passes were very dangerous. Those passes, oh my God, they might be picked. You might fail, and then if you fail, what will you do? And on that drive, Cooper Kupp, 4 catches, 39 yards, a game-winning touchdown, okay? If Kirk stays, and let's just assume for the sake of the conversation right now, Kirk Cousins is the Vikings quarterback in 2022. If Kirk stays, Cooper Kupp is Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is Cooper Kupp. Kirk Cousins, that's right, you Cousins-loving stans. Kirk Cousins is Stafford. That ball, with no questions asked and no room for errors when it matters most, that ball has to be thrown into situations that you hate, that go against every fiber that exists in your brain. But it must happen with no excuses post-game of, they were double. Oh, man. Safety high. Safety high. What was I going to do? No. The other thing that Stafford mentioned in the clip that Declan played at the outset of the show is this. What did Matthew Stafford say about his relationship and what paid off with Cooper Kupp? Hours together. Together. Gentlemen, Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins. Clear your calendars. Tell your families, kiss them goodbye, and get to work. Hours together. Hours. Kirk, that means there is not a lot of time for the rest of your life to exist if you're going to be the quarterback. Hours together.
Yep. To your point, I think Kirk has said this in almost every press conference he's ever given. He said it in his book that his core central, I don't know what you would say it, like his main ethos when it comes to playing quarterback is don't make the game-changing mistake. Because he recalled in his book that game Michigan State against Notre Dame, right? He forgot to send a receiver in motion, and so someone ran the wrong route or whatever, and he threw a bad interception. And he said that sticks in my head. I will not make a mistake like that to cost us a game. And so with Kirk, you get usually this very steady, 17, 18 games, maybe eventually 7, including playoff games, whatever. You don't get a ton of game-altering mistakes from him. You get some fumbles, and he had that Falcons game. But Matthew Stafford shows you it's not enough to just avoid interceptions. In fact, you can throw some interceptions. Matthew Stafford gives you a wider variance of outcome. There's going to be some times where he throws 3 picks in the first half, and oh my God, what just happened, right? But, and this is, I'll transition to my next statement here too. But that throw he made, it's all over. I retweeted this morning. It's the game-winning drive. They're trying to get down, score a touchdown, right? And there's a play where he's in the pocket, and Cooper Kupp is running. It's like a 12 yards out and in route, and there's a linebacker sitting in the exact spot where Stafford needs to hit Cooper Kupp. And Stafford he stares this linebacker over to the right, looking at the tight end, and makes a no-look throw. He pulls the linebacker like 3 yards up away from the gap that he wants Cooper Kupp to run into. No look, whizzes it by the freaking ear hole of this linebacker. And that's a super risky throw that might get picked. When that ball leaves his hand, there's a 50% chance it gets picked. But he has to. You can't be checking down in that situation to a backup tight end. You have to drive the ball down the field and pick up chunks. And there's just this level of fearlessness that you see out of him, and it sometimes results in a train wreck interception. But
that's born from what as well. Kupp is unbelievable, but it's born from the fact that those two got to the facility at 5 a.m. all the time, worked together constantly. I'm saying I want the Jefferson, and I think Jefferson's in. I want the Jefferson Cousins work, if Kirk is indeed back, to start right now, basically. I don't, like that's what you need, that mentality of, I trust you so much that I'm going to make a throw that might be stupid, but it's going to work.
So I'll give you this one sort of piggybacking. Vikings fans, be excited about Kevin O'Connell. I get that this was Sean McVay's moment. This was Matthew Stafford's moment. But by all accounts, Kevin O'Connell was very, very heavily involved in onboarding Matthew Stafford, coming up with schemes, coming up with ways to dissect opposing defenses. Go back if you get a chance at some point and just watch the last 10 or 15 plays of that game offensively for the Rams, the last drive. And like you said, the Bengals know that OBJ is out, Tyler Higbee is out, Robert Woods has been out for 2 months. It's pretty much Cooper Kupp. And they're doing everything they can to, the Bengals defense, everything they can to account for Cooper Kupp. And so how did the Rams counter? Go look at the creative ways they used Cooper Kupp. At one point, they had him running for 7 yards on a jet sweep for a first down. They had him in the slot. They had him outside. They had him running over the middle. They had him running to the back pylon. Just an amazing, and again, Sean McVay is the main mastermind here. But the Vikings get to steal some equity from this coaching tree. And people have been raving about Kevin O'Connell's leadership and teaching abilities. And so He's coming to town this week whenever they make it official with a calculus offensive playbook that lives in the modern era of football. And whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Cousins or somebody else, I think Vikings fans should be excited about that.
In my opinion, it could be classified as a don't be stupid, but there is no room for fear approach. So like if you're afraid,
quarterbacking, you're saying.
Yeah, well, or to just buying in to the entire thing. Yes, QB is the most important guy, but if you look at this entire thing, it's not about being dumb, but you cannot have fear. And if you do screw up, you got to go back out there and you got to keep going. This whole thing of everybody being like, well, if we make a mistake, it's going to set our defense up to, oh, no, we can't do that. That has to be gone. Like one of OConnell's first moves when they start their program this spring, I think, is this. You have to literally wipe the offensive players' minds clean of the fear that was built in them.
Yeah.
Fear-based team. The fear-based offense of this team, which to me was, if we make a mistake, everyone's in trouble. Everyone's in trouble, right? That's got to go because like that offense is an exact blueprint of don't be dumb, but you're going to make mistakes because we need to put ourselves in a position to make plays.
By the way, the Rams, if you're looking like for their statistical profile in terms of just simply points for, points against, they were 15th in points allowed this season. They allowed 22 points per game. They were situationally, they were really good in certain spots, and obviously, like when, look at yesterday when they needed the best defensive player of our generation, Aaron Donald, to make plays. Boom, he stops a run on third down with one arm, and then he gets to Joe Burrow for what it wasn't a sack necessarily, but it was he got to Joe Burrow before he could throw to a wide open Jamar Chase. And then offensively for the Rams, Matthew Stafford, this may have led the NFL. He threw 17 interceptions this year. And I feel like that's a non-starter for a lot of like, well, my God, he threw 17 interceptions. He was sabotaging your team. But along with some of those mistakes, the Rams, Stafford, offensive scheming, coaching, they maximized the upside of that variance too. 41 touchdowns, almost 5,000 yards. He threw like in the second half and fourth quarter of these playoff games, he threw like 10 or 12 touchdown passes. And so I think it shows you that you don't have to have the number one defense. You just have to have a good situational defense that can, not get. And by the way, the Rams defense is better than the Vikings defense. But it's okay to throw picks. It's okay to make mistakes if you're also taking advantage of huge chunk plays on top of it. So just like I'm with you. Get rid of this fear-based
Dare I say it?
That we've seen.
It's okay to abandon the run. It's okay. You can do it. It's not your fault, Alvin. It's not your fault. You can abandon the run.
Yeah. All right, Dex, your statement.
All right, my first statement. Yes, there were similarities, but the Vikings are not the Rams. I want to explore this path because I saw so many tweets about this over the last basically 48 hours. And I want to indulge it for a second. I saw the comparisons. Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford. The fact the Rams had a top defense. The Vikings once had a top defense. LA has Cooper, Kupp, and OBJ. The Vikings had Thielen and Diggs, and now have Thielen and Jefferson. They're comparable, but it was 4 years ago, dude. This is not the same recipe for success that the Vikings and the Rams had. The Rams went for it in a much different way, and it worked for them. And let's go back to Cousins and Stafford just for a second, because if you watch the last month of the playoffs and you think Kirk and Stafford are the same, please, full stop. Get your eyes checked. Go to a psychiatric review. Go figure out something else, because Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins are on a completely different level. Stafford has a tendency to throw some risky passes. Kirk Cousins never throws risky passes. He literally says, I don't want to throw those passes. Kirk has the ability to throw them. He does. He has an amazing arm, but he's not Matthew Stafford. And the Rams said basically for the last 5 years, they said screw it on every first-round pick. They haven't had a first-round pick since Jared Goff. That's 5 years of no first-round picks. The Vikings have wasted, outside of Justin Jefferson, wasted every first-round pick since 2016, essentially. I know the Sam Bradford trade, they had to make it, but outside of Justin Jefferson, just some gigantic whiffs in the first round. And Sean McVay and Mike Zimmer, completely polar opposite dudes, right? Like McVay had some warts yesterday. Like McVay almost not gave the game away, but he made some mistakes play calling wise, but he was still able to adapt and change to it. And when it was on the final drive, he said, Stafford and Kupp, go make the play. Go make the plays. You guys trust each other. I have the belief and faith in you. Mike Zimmer never had the faith in any of his quarterbacks to go out and say that. So I understand why at one point you can look at the 2018-17 Vikings and say, well, it was a top defense. We made this big play for a quarterback. The Rams just did the same thing. It's not the same thing. They're not comparable, in my opinion. The Rams were able to do it on a completely different level, and they went about it in a completely different way. The Rams and Vikings are not the same.
Well, I'll pick out the one thing the one thing I totally agree on is the Vikings tried this, right? The Vikings tried the Matthew Stafford model, which is, hey, the team feels like it's ready to rock. You've already made a deep run in the playoffs, and you just need an upgrade or something more stable at quarterback. And so the Rams swapped Goff for Stafford, and they win a Super Bowl. The Vikings, people are kind of talking about this like, well, the Vikings can do the same thing. They already have their Stafford, which, they're very different quarterbacks. Well, they did 4 years ago. Like the Vikings were 13-3 NFC Championship game, and they were swapping. Let's go from we don't really trust Case Keenum to keep doing this long term. Let's get someone more dynamic in here with his arm. And like 2018-19, that was the window. And they missed the playoffs 1 year, and then they got smoked in the divisional round by San Francisco. I mean, that was their chance, and they failed. Zimmer failed. Cousins failed.
But they didn't go. They went in, but not all in. That's the problem.
They didn't make the big trades.
Sign him, Ramsey. Trade your draft picks, and they're like, well, but we've got this QB. The Rams had a clear understanding of what they had and how it could work. The Vikings were like, Rick said, well, yeah, if we get the QB, it's going to be great, but I got to build too. You can't serve two master plans. He basically had two plans, and he didn't divert from either one. That's sort of a blind spot right there, if you ask me.
Yeah. All right, Jeb, back to you.
All right. My next statement is this, and this crystallized in watching the Bengals and Rams throughout the course of the playoffs, but was especially clear as student and teacher went at it yesterday. And it's this: offensively, it's all about the setup. What do I mean? You guys recall this year we praised the Vikings at times and Clint Kubiak, because the first 15 work so well. The first 15 are unbelievable. When the Vikings get out there with those scripted plays, good luck stopping them. After that, they're a train wreck at times. But those first 15, the Vikings are ready for you on Sunday and Monday if they must, but they will get at least 3 points. See what the Rams do, Bengals do, good teams do? If they score on their scripted portion, that's great. They're happy. But what they're doing is they use those plays to take the temperature of the defense and set up the rest of the game. They use those 15 plays, 12 to 15 plays, to basically get ideas for what they can do. And they use them as a link between coach, OC, and quarterback to feel things out. And then they go. And explore. So the scripted plays allow them to explore the space later on. The Vikings were all in on, let's just go down there and score. We got the greatest first 15 ever. It's not the point. The point is exploring the defense, exploring the game, finding out what you can work with and what you can't. I mean, that is such a different path from what we saw between the Vikings and what we see from the Rams, the Bengals, and hopefully what Kevin O'Connell is going to bring here.
And I actually thought that both teams did a bad job of that yesterday. I mean, the Bengals, how many times do you need to be, like, in your preparation for the game, you knew that you were going to have a hard time dealing with pressure up the middle. During the game, it started to manifest, especially in the second half. Like, how many more times do you need to see Aaron Donald break through and pressure you before you bring some extra protection and do something? It's like, I was sort of surprised by how often they let Joe Burrow just get pummeled in the playoffs. And then on the McVay side, how many times are you going to run the ball into the back of the offensive line and get stuffed? I mean, it took them forever to abandon the run. So I think your point applies to other games leading up to the Super Bowl, but I actually thought both head coaches got oddly stubborn in this one and didn't move on from what wasn't working.
They stick to what they want to do. What I appreciate, though, is the exploratory nature of not being all in for those 15 plays and let's just go score. They're scripting to try and get tells. They're scripting to try and see things.
Yeah, well, the other thing, too, is like
that's a huge difference.
The Vikings statistically were one of the better first-quarter offenses points-wise in the NFL because of those scripted plays. Like, they did a pretty good job of, okay, we can look at the film, Kirk, Kubiak, figure this thing out. But once the game breaks down a little bit, becomes more improvisational, the opposing team goes on a run and punches you in the mouth, then it became hard for both the Vikings offense and defense, it feels like, to slow things down. So, I'll give you that.
I think in the Rams case, too, I think OBJ going out changed that entire game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was – I think if he doesn't get hurt, the Rams can run. Mm-hmm. But then they tried to run once he was out, and eventually – and I appreciate this – I appreciate the fact that when push came to shove, the Rams said, okay, screw it. Because there's a lot of teams in this league that would have said, we are sticking with what we do. And the Rams did say, okay, it's not working.
Yeah. All right, here's my next statement. I don't care who it is. Well, I kind of care. But, like, give me a quarterback going forward that rises up against pressure. This is an amazing statistic, all right? Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow were the only two quarterbacks in the NFL to average 8 yards per attempt when pressured. And that includes the regular season. If you go playoffs, I believe Burrow is at 9 yards per attempt when you tack on playoffs. They were number 1 and number 2 by a mile in yards per attempt when facing pressure of an opposing defense. And in that game yesterday, Matthew Stafford, when the Bengals rushed 5 or more, was 5 of 5 for 41 yards and a touchdown. If you're wondering where Captain Kirk ranks, so Stafford and Burrow were number 1 and number 2 in yards per attempt when pressured. Cousins was 32nd.
Cool.
And I think we spend so much time trying to figure out how can you build this perfect thing, and like obviously the Rams have built it better than the Vikings have. But it's not perfect for the Rams either, because football is hard, even when you're constructed like the Rams are. There's like a 2-hour stretch last night where they can't move the ball. They turned the ball over a couple times. Like, football is freaking hard. Things break down. Despite your best efforts to build a roster and to keep guys healthy, like, teams are going to put pressure on you, especially once you start facing the best teams in the world in the second, third, and now fourth round of the playoffs, right? And the fact that both these teams had guys, and like Stafford and Burrow, just sort of shake it off. They shake off injury. They shake off pressure. They rise up. They're not perfect. They make some bad throws here and there. Stafford throws some interceptions, but I love their ability, both statistically and with the eye test, to just shrug off opposing teams making the game sort of muddy. So give me someone like that.
Burrow's knee basically collapsed. It basically collapsed, and he's like, I'm fine.
Stafford's ankle, too, is like,
yeah. But he's like,
beating.
I'm fine. and I mean, there is zero attempt here on my part to compare this to Kirk, because Kirk plays a ton. I'm just saying Joe Burrow's knee collapsed and Stafford's foot got bent like sideways, and both of them were like, okay, go. Okay, I'm good. I'm still playing.
Super Bowl. Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah.
All right, my next statement. Can it please be our turn? Can it be our turn for once? The following teams have not made the Super Bowl since the last time the Vikings have made it in 77. These are the teams: the Texans, the Lions, the Browns, the Jaguars,
expansion, yep,
and the Vikings.
Yep.
And the Vikings. Let me read those teams again that the Vikings are in that haven't made a Super Bowl since 1977. The Texans, the Lions, the Browns, the Jags. The Vikings are in the company of just 5 of some of the worst run teams of all time in the last 30, 40 years.
There's one team on the list that you just read that since the last time the Vikings made the Super Bowl have played full-time. The Lions.
The Browns missed a 5-year chunk.
Yes, the Browns did.
The Browns
have
Texans
never expansion,
been to
Jaguars.
a Super Bowl. The Lions and Browns have never been to a Super Bowl.
No, but I mean, at least they took 5 years off. Yeah. And the Ravens went.
Yeah. I think the Lions should take 5 years off.
And the Browns, and those Browns went. Baltimore went.
It is. Yeah,
And-
it's so tough.
Dude, like, look at the Bengals the Bengals just went to the Super Bowl, right? The Panthers have been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
The Falcons, the Seahawks, the Cardinals. I know Cincy fans right now are probably heartbroken, and there's some grief-stricken Bengals fans today. They canceled school in preparation for today, which I love. All right?
Yeah,
I love that.
You should
Good for
cancel
them.
school. Cancel school.
I love
all the
that.
time.
You should do that.
Yeah, I agree.
but I'd rather hurt than never love it all, man. And I just want the Vikings in a damn Super Bowl.
Question: if you guys could have the Vikings since their last appearance, or the Bengals, who, by the way, at times have been a dumpster fire, but have 3 appearances, which would you take?
I mean, give me the Bengals. I guess it's
because you've been to 3.
Those are 2 great examples because the Bengals have largely been garbage, right, for 30 years. They did have a run with Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton where like they were competitive and they would win 11 games once in a while, but they didn't win playoff games. They went like 0-8 in the playoffs. So at least you were kind of the Timberwolves there for like 7 or 8 years with KG almost. For like, yeah, you made the playoffs, but then you get smoked in the first round. It's tough. I'm not going to sit here and celebrate mediocrity anymore. The Bengals have graduated from mediocrity. Mm-hmm. So now would I like a 10-year stretch of being embarrassing like they had in the 90s? Not really. I don't want that. But I don't fear that. I don't think you should. I certainly don't think that Kwesi and KOC should do everything they can to run it back. Like, I am okay with the risk of falling into a well of NFL futility for the chance that they can build something sustainable. So I'm here for the risk. I'm here for the risk. It's
insane that the Vikings, though, have just not stumbled into one. Like Jake Delhomme and the Panthers went to one.
Yeah.
You're so right.
Like, just
you're right.
How have they not stumbled into one?
2009. That's how. Like, you had your heart ripped out in the NFC Championship game 3 times. 87, 98, 2009.
Well, people had their heart ripped out also in 2000 and 2017. Yeah. But those were blowout games.
Yeah, I don't count those as much, but yes, that's true.
So yeah, it's amazing. Like to not stumble your way in is impossible, right? And they had both those games in '98 and 2009 in hand. But if you look at those games too, those are the 2 best seasons in my life, right? '98 and 2009. Those are the 2 best Vikings football teams. I was born in 1985.
Yep.
But those were like kind of fluky pop-up seasons. Like they had good rosters, but then Randall Cunningham is magically back from being unemployed, and Randy Moss fell in the draft. This generational talent, and they had this crazy pop-up year that turned out to not. It was kind of sustainable because they were competitive for like a 3-year stretch, and they couldn't cash in. But the 2009 team was like, this is your once in a lifetime chance. Brett Favre is only going to be here for like a year or 2.
It's magic.
It's not a quarterback of the future. It's just like kind of like Peyton Manning in Denver. They cashed in.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, but
Matthew Stafford now in LA. They cashed in.
They cashed in. That's the difference.
Yep. Real quick, a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They've been helping business owners maximize the success of their companies for a long time through risk management, tools and resources, products like MyShield, legal resources, safety walkthroughs, webinars, all sorts of things that you can get your hands on as a business owner at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours.